dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello, bright minds and curious learners, and a very warm welcome back to Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, your dedicated guide, always excited to explore the wonderfully colorful world of English idioms and help you make sense of phrases that don't quite take the direct route to meaning. So thrilled you're joining us again today for another linguistic adventure.
And I'm Jack, your enthusiastic co-host and linguistic navigator. I'm here to help steer you through the sometimes choppy waters of idiomatic expressions with a splash of insight and, hopefully, a little bit of fun along the way. Think of me as your friendly mechanic for metaphorical phrases. It's always a genuinely good time to be back here on Idiom Insights, connecting with all of you.
It really is a pleasure, Jack. And today's episode of Idiom Insights is packed with some really useful and frequently used idioms that touch upon various aspects of human behavior, overcoming setbacks, facing different conditions, and getting a share of something desirable. Understanding these will certainly make your English sound much more natural, fluent, and insightful when you're speaking with native speakers.
A very diverse and practical selection indeed. These phrases cover everything from inherent characteristics to starting over, from facing the weather to getting your fair share. And to give you a clear idea of what specific idioms we'll be dissecting and discussing in detail today on Idiom Insights, here are the 4 expressions we've lined up for you. We'll start with "a leopard can't change its spots," which is all about inherent nature and whether people can truly change. Then we'll tackle "back to the drawing board," a phrase for when a plan doesn't work and you need to start again. Following that, we'll look at "come rain or shine," describing something that will happen no matter what the conditions are. And finally, we'll wrap up with "piece of the pie," talking about getting a share of something valuable or profitable.
That gives our listeners a clear and interesting preview of the idiomatic journey we'll be taking together over the next little while. 4 very different but equally valuable expressions that you'll hear used quite often in everyday conversation.
They certainly are. And before we dive headfirst into explaining that first idiom and breaking down its meaning and how to use it, we wanted to take a quick moment to connect with you, our fantastic audience. If you are finding these episodes of Idiom Insights genuinely helpful and enjoyable for your English learning journey, and if you appreciate the effort we put into creating them for you, please consider showing us your support by subscribing or following our podcast on whatever platform you are using right now.
Your subscription is a wonderful way to ensure you never miss a future episode packed with more useful idioms and explanations that will help you sound more like a native speaker. It also helps us reach more people around the world who are on a similar path of learning and mastering English. And if you feel like going the extra mile, leaving a like or a quick rating on your platform is also incredibly helpful and sincerely appreciated. It's a little gesture that makes a big difference in helping others discover Idiom Insights and grow our lovely community. Thank you so much in advance for your support.
All right, Emma, are you ready to explore whether certain patterns of behavior are fixed or if they can indeed be changed?
I'm absolutely ready, Jack. Let's examine the nature of this particular animal. Excellent. Our very first idiom for today on Idiom Insights, as we previewed, is "a leopard can't change its spots."
A leopard can't change its spots. This idiom is quite evocative, isn't it? It comes from the observation that the spots on a leopard's fur are a fixed pattern. They are part of the animal's inherent nature and appearance, and they simply don't change throughout its life. And that's exactly what the idiom means when applied to people. A person's fundamental character, their inherent nature, or their ingrained habits and behaviors are very difficult, if not impossible, to change, especially if those habits or characteristics are negative.
That's a very clear explanation drawing on the literal image, Jack. The idiom suggests that certain core aspects of a person's personality or behavior are so deeply ingrained that they are permanent and unchangeable, much like the spots on a leopard. We often use this idiom, usually with a bit of resignation or even cynicism, when we see someone repeatedly behaving in a certain negative way, despite promising or trying to change, and we conclude that they simply aren't capable of fundamentally altering who they are or how they act.
Exactly. It's typically used when you see someone repeating an old mistake or falling back into a negative pattern of behavior that you thought or hoped they had overcome. For example, if a friend who is always late for everything promises to start being on time, but they consistently show up late anyway, you might sigh and say to someone else, "Well, I guess a leopard can't change its spots." You're expressing your belief that their tendency to be late is just a fundamental part of who they are, and they probably won't ever truly become a punctual person.
It implies a deep-seated characteristic that is resistant to change, no matter the effort or intention. It's often used about negative traits, like being habitually dishonest, lazy, or unreliable. If someone has a history of being untrustworthy in business dealings, and they get into trouble again because of dishonest behavior, people might comment, "See? I knew it. A leopard can't change its spots." They were never going to be truly honest.
The phrase certainly carries a sense of predetermined nature, suggesting that some behavioral patterns are almost like destiny for certain individuals. It's used to express a lack of faith in someone's ability or willingness to fundamentally alter a core aspect of their character, especially if there's a long history of that particular behavior. It's less often used for positive changes and more for those persistent, often frustrating, negative traits.
The origin, as we touched upon, is the visual, observable fact about leopards. This literal truth about the animal's coat became a powerful metaphor for the perceived unchanging nature of human character or deep-seated habits. It's a way of saying, this is just who they are, and they are unlikely to ever be truly different.
It really does convey that sense of inherent, unalterable nature. It's a phrase used to explain why someone might continue to behave in a predictable, often negative way, despite external pressures or even their own stated intentions to change. It suggests that the spots of their character are permanent.
Let's hear how Mia and Mark use "a leopard can't change its spots" in their conversation. They're talking about a colleague whose behavior seems frustratingly consistent.
Mark, did you see what David did in the team meeting this morning? He completely interrupted Sarah while she was presenting her ideas, and then took credit for one of her suggestions.
Seriously, Mia? He did that again? I thought after the last time he got called out for doing something similar, he might actually try to behave more respectfully in meetings.
I know. He even apologized last month and said he was going to work on his listening skills and being more supportive of colleagues. But clearly, that lasted about 5 minutes.
Well, I hate to say it, and maybe it sounds cynical, but honestly, sometimes I just think a leopard can't change its spots. He's always been like that, pushing others aside to make himself look good. It seems like that's just part of his fundamental personality.
It really feels that way sometimes, doesn't it? It's frustrating when people's promises to change just don't seem to stick.
Yeah, some habits are just too deeply ingrained, I guess.
That dialogue perfectly illustrates the idiom. Mia and Mark are observing David repeating his negative behavior of interrupting and taking credit, despite having apologized and seemingly promised to change. Mark uses "a leopard can't change its spots" to express his belief that David's fundamental character or ingrained habit of seeking credit is unlikely to ever truly change.
It perfectly captures that feeling of resignation when you see someone fall back into an old, negative pattern. Mark's comment highlights the perceived unchangeable nature of David's behavior, making the idiom a perfect fit for their conversation. It's a common human experience to feel frustrated by persistent negative traits in others.
So listeners, have you ever used or heard the idiom "a leopard can't change its spots" to describe someone whose fundamental character or negative habits seemed impossible to change? Share your sentences using this idiom in the comments section below this episode of Idiom Insights. Tell us about a time when someone proved resistant to changing their spots.
It's definitely an idiom that speaks to the challenge of personal change. All right, let's move on to our second idiom, which is about what happens when a plan fails and you have to begin again. Our second idiom today on Idiom Insights is back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. This is a very useful idiom that means you have to start planning or developing something all over again because the original plan or attempt failed, was unsuccessful, or proved to be inadequate. It implies that the initial approach didn't work, and you need to return to the very beginning of the process to come up with a new idea or strategy.
That's a very clear explanation, Emma. The image it gives us is quite literal. An architect, engineer, designer, or inventor having to go back to their drawing board, the surface where they draw up their initial plans and designs because their first attempt didn't work out as expected. It signifies returning to the conceptual stage to rethink everything.
Exactly. You use this idiom when you've tried something and it hasn't succeeded, so you need to abandon that approach and start fresh with new ideas. If a company launches a new product that doesn't sell well at all, despite all their marketing efforts, the team responsible might have to say, "Okay, the initial launch was a failure. It's back to the drawing board for this product. We need to figure out a completely new design or marketing strategy."
It implies a setback that requires a complete restart of the planning phase. It's not just a minor tweak. It's going back to basics because the fundamental approach was flawed or unsuccessful. If a scientist conducts an experiment based on a hypothesis and the results prove the hypothesis was wrong, they might say, "Well, that didn't work out as planned." It's back to the drawing board to develop a new hypothesis and design a different experiment.
The origin is quite literal, stemming from fields like engineering, architecture, or design, where physical drawing boards were used for drafting plans. The idiom gained popularity more broadly to describe any situation where an initial plan or effort fails, necessitating a return to the very beginning of the planning or conceptual process.
It's a very practical idiom that acknowledges failure and the need to rethink and restart. It's often used with a sense of disappointment because the previous effort was wasted, but also with the understanding that a new approach is necessary. We thought we had the perfect solution to the problem, but it created even more issues, so I guess it's back to the drawing board.
It perfectly conveys the need to discard the previous failed attempt and begin the creative or planning process from scratch to find a better solution. It's the action you take after a plan fails and needs a complete overhaul.
Let's listen to Mia and Mark using back to the drawing board in their conversation. They're talking about a project outcome that didn't meet expectations.
Hey Mark, how did the presentation of the new website design go with the client yesterday afternoon? Was the meeting productive?
Oh, Mia, it didn't go well at all, unfortunately. Not productive in the way we hoped, anyway.
Oh no, that's disappointing. What happened exactly? Didn't they like the design mock-ups after all our hard work?
No, they really didn't like them, not even a little bit. They said the layout wasn't intuitive enough. They didn't like the color scheme we chose at all, and they felt the overall user experience was confusing and didn't meet their needs for their customers.
Wow, that's tough feedback to hear after putting in so many hours. So what happens now with the website project?
Well, the client basically rejected the entire concept we presented. So the manager said we have to go back to the drawing board. We need to completely rethink the design from scratch and come up with a totally new approach that hopefully aligns better with what they're looking for. All our previous work on those mock-ups is effectively wasted now.
That's so frustrating when that happens. Starting over completely is never easy.
That dialogue clearly demonstrates the idiom. The website design team's initial plan, the mock-ups, failed because the client rejected it completely. Mark uses back to the drawing board to explain that they now have to start the design process all over again from the very beginning, rethinking their entire approach because the first attempt was unsuccessful.
It perfectly captures that feeling of a setback that necessitates a complete restart of the planning or creative process. The client's rejection sent them back to the drawing board, highlighting the need for a new strategy and design approach after the initial one failed.
So listeners, have you ever had a plan or attempt that didn't work out, forcing you to go back to the drawing board? Share your sentences using back to the drawing board in the comments section below this episode of Idiom Insights. Tell us about a time you had to start over.
It's an idiom that is very useful for describing those moments when things don't go according to plan. All right, let's move on to our third idiom for today. This one is about commitment regardless of circumstances. Our third idiom on Idiom Insights is come rain or shine.
Come rain or shine. This is a simple, straightforward idiom that means something will happen absolutely certainly, regardless of the circumstances, difficulties, or specifically, regardless of the weather conditions. It implies a strong commitment or guarantee that something will take place no matter what problems or challenges arise.
That's a very clear explanation, Emma. The phrase literally mentions two contrasting weather conditions, rain, bad weather, and shine, good weather, to represent any possible condition or difficulty. So if you say something will happen come rain or shine, you mean it will happen whether the conditions are good or bad, easy or difficult, regardless of any obstacles.
Exactly. It emphasizes reliability, determination, or a strong guarantee. If an outdoor event like a market or a festival is advertised as happening come rain or shine, it means the organizers are committed to holding it even if the weather is terrible. If it's raining, snowing, or windy, they will still proceed with the event.
It's often used to describe someone's unwavering commitment or habit. My grandmother goes for a walk in the park every single morning. Come rain or shine, nothing stops her from doing her exercise. This highlights her absolute dedication and consistency, regardless of weather or other minor issues.
It can also be used to express your own personal commitment to something. I promise I will be there to help you move into your new apartment on Saturday, come rain or shine. You can absolutely count on me, no matter what happens. You are giving a strong guarantee of your presence and help, indicating that no foreseeable difficulty or bad weather will prevent you from being there.
The origin is quite literal, obviously related to outdoor activities being affected by weather, but it has expanded to cover any situation where a commitment or event is guaranteed, despite potential problems. The phrase, come hell or high water, is a slightly more intense version of this idiom, implying even more extreme difficulties will not stop something from happening. But come rain or shine is very common for expressing general reliability despite normal challenges.
It's a very positive idiom used to convey steadfastness and certainty. It's a simple but effective way to say, without fail, no matter what.
It really does emphasize that absolute reliability and determination. If someone says they will do something, come rain or shine, you can be pretty confident that they mean it and will follow through unless something truly catastrophic happens.
Let's hear Mia and Mark use come rain or shine in their conversation. They're talking about a friend's consistent dedication to a hobby or activity.
I saw Sarah heading off on her bike this morning, dressed head to toe in waterproof gear. It's absolutely pouring down with rain outside.
Yeah, that sounds typical of Sarah. She's incredibly dedicated to her cycling club.
She really is. I admire her commitment. I would have definitely stayed in bed on a miserable, cold, rainy day like this.
I know what you mean, but you know, Sarah always goes out with her cycling group on Saturday mornings. Absolutely nothing stops her from going. She cycles with them, come rain or shine.
She really does. Her dedication is pretty impressive. Even if it looks a bit miserable out there today, she's always out on that bike, whatever the weather is doing.
Exactly. You can always find her cycling on a Saturday morning, without fail.
That's a great natural example highlighting Sarah's unwavering commitment to her cycling. Mia and Mark agree that she cycles with her group, come rain or shine, meaning she goes cycling every Saturday morning regardless of the weather conditions, whether it's sunny or, as in their example, pouring rain. Her commitment is absolute.
It perfectly illustrates how the idiom describes someone's complete reliability and determination to do something consistently, despite external conditions or difficulties. Sarah's commitment to cycling come rain or shine is clearly shown through their conversation.
So, listeners, what is something you do or someone you know does come rain or shine? Perhaps a regular activity, a habit, or commitment that happens no matter what. Share your sentences using come rain or shine in the comments section below. This episode of Idiom Insights. Tell us about something reliable and consistent.
It's a lovely idiom for describing steadfastness. And now, for our fourth and final idiom for today's episode of Idiom Insights. This one is about getting your share. Our fourth and final idiom is piece of the pie.
Piece of the pie. This is a very common idiom that refers to a share or a portion of something valuable, profitable, or desirable. That something is often a business, a market, a financial opportunity, or even just a general success or benefit that is being shared among a group of people. Getting a piece of the pie means getting your share of that success, profit, or benefit.
That's a perfect description, Jack. The image is simple and appealing. A whole pie represents the total amount of something desirable, maybe the total profit of a company, the total value of a market, or the benefits derived from a joint effort. Getting a piece means you receive a portion, a share, or a slice of that total.
Exactly. It's very often used in business and finance contexts. When talking about a company's growth or success in a particular market, you might say, with their innovative new product, the company is hoping to get a bigger piece of the pie in the smartphone market. They want to increase their share of the total market sales and profits.
It can also refer to sharing benefits or rewards from a joint effort. If a group of friends work together on a successful project, and everyone benefits financially or otherwise from that success, you could say, We all worked incredibly hard on that project, so it's only fair that everyone gets a piece of the pie when it succeeds. Everyone deserves a share of the benefits or profits.
It implies getting your deserved or desired portion of something valuable. It can be a physical share like profits or assets, or a less tangible share like recognition or influence. After contributing so much to the team's success, she felt it was time she got a bigger piece of the pie in terms of responsibility and recognition. She wanted a larger share of the influence and acknowledgement.
The origin is very literal, simply referring to dividing a physical pie into slices for sharing. This straightforward action became a popular metaphor for dividing and sharing any kind of resource, profit, or benefit among individuals or groups.
It's a very intuitive idiom. You can easily picture a pie being cut into slices and everyone getting their share. The focus is on receiving a portion of a larger, desirable whole.
Let's hear how Mia and Mark use piece of the pie in their conversation. They're talking about wanting to benefit from a successful project or venture.
Hey, Mark, have you seen how incredibly well the new online course platform the company launched is doing? They're getting thousands of signups already.
I know, right? It's been way more successful than anyone initially predicted, hasn't it? It seems like it's going to be a huge source of revenue for the company very quickly.
It really does. And my team put in so much extra work getting all the course materials ready and helping with the initial testing phase for that platform for months before it launched. We worked overtime almost every week.
Oh, absolutely. Your team definitely played a crucial role in making it happen and getting it ready to launch successfully.
Exactly. So if this platform is going to be so profitable for the company, I really hope our team gets a piece of the pie somehow. Maybe a bonus or at least some significant recognition for all the extra effort we put in to make it a success.
That seems totally fair. You guys definitely deserve a share of the benefits after contributing so much to its success. You earned your piece of that profitable pie.
I hope management sees it that way too.
That dialogue is a perfect illustration of the idiom. Mia's team contributed significantly to the success of the new online platform, and now that the platform is very profitable, the pie, she feels her team deserves a piece of the pie, a share of the benefits, either financially, a bonus, or in the form of recognition for their hard work.
It clearly shows the idiom being used to mean getting a share of the profits, success, or benefits from a venture that a group contributed to. Mia believes her team deserves their piece of the pie after their significant effort.
And that brings us to the end of our 4 idioms for today on Idiom Insights. We've explored unchanging natures, restarting after failure, unwavering commitment, and getting your rightful share.
We've certainly covered a diverse and useful set of phrases today. In this episode of Idiom Insights, we learned that someone's core nature or habit is hard to change. A leopard can't change its spots. We learned that when a plan fails, you might have to go back to the drawing board. We discovered that something guaranteed to happen no matter what is happening, come rain or shine. And finally, we talked about getting a share of something desirable or profitable being getting a piece of the pie.
These are all excellent idioms that are used frequently by native English speakers. Adding them to your vocabulary will make your English sound much more natural and sophisticated. So please don't be shy. Try practicing them aloud, writing them in sentences, or even using them in a conversation if you have the opportunity. Repetition and practice are key to mastering them.
Absolutely! Consistent practice helps these phrases become a natural part of your speaking and understanding. And if you enjoyed this episode of Idiom Insights and found it helpful for your English learning today, please remember to give us a like and consider leaving a quick rating on your podcast platform. Your positive feedback is incredibly motivating for us and helps other learners discover our show.
It truly does. And to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes where we'll explore even more fascinating and useful English idioms, please be sure to subscribe or follow Idiom Insights wherever you are listening right now.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and joining the Idiom Insights community. We genuinely appreciate your dedication to learning English and hope you found our episode both insightful and enjoyable.
It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Keep practicing those idioms, keep exploring the wonderful nuances of the English language, and we'll be back soon with more insights.
Until next time, happy learning and enjoy finding your piece of the pie. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye for now.